I live just outside Boulder, Colorado, in a small, quiet house I bought after years of saving. It's nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, a squeaky porch swing that complains every time I sit on it, and a patchy garden I try to keep alive between work shifts and long evenings with a book in my lap. I planted daisies last spring, hoping they'd brighten the walkway. Most of them died, but a few are still hanging on, which feels oddly symbolic. My name is Rachel Moore, and I'm 30 years old. If you had asked me a few years ago about my family, I might have said they were normal. A little distant, maybe. The kind of family that sends a group text on holidays instead of calling, the kind that forgets your coffee order, no matter how many times you've said it. But nothing dramatic. Just distant. But now I know better. I was never the favorite. I was never even close. Growing up, I was the older daughter, the one expected to be responsible, patient, and invisible when needed. I was the babysitter, the tutor, the one who had to fold laundry without being asked. My younger sister, Bella, is 27 now, but she was always the star. The golden child. The one who could do no wrong. The world seemed to bend for her, especially inside our home. When Bella was upset, the whole house paused. If she smiled, it was like the sun had come out. It didn't matter if I was crying or sick. Bella's mood dictated everything. She got a brand new car on her 16th birthday. My parents threw her a party with balloons, catered food, a chocolate fountain, and a professional photographer who followed her around like she was a celebrity. When I turned 16, I got a secondhand jacket that didn't even fit right and a quick pat on the shoulder from my dad before he rushed out to one of Bella's recitals. No party. No cake. Just leftovers in the fridge, and the reminder that I was too mature for fuss. When Bella casually mentioned she wanted to see the world, they sent her to Italy for a semester abroad, just because she thought it might be fun. She posted pictures of gondola rides and sunlit courtyards while I was working double shifts at a bakery, just to afford gas and textbooks. When she was accepted into an art school in San Francisco, they acted as if she had been chosen to be the next Picasso. I had gotten a scholarship to a state university, and my mother's reaction was a flat, "Well, at least we won't need loans." That was it. No hug. No celebration. No framed acceptance letter like Bella's. At 18, I started working full-time at a local bakery. I stacked croissants at dawn, packed cakes with trembling hands, and learned how to keep my face calm while someone yelled about a wrong order. I moved into a small apartment 2 towns over with nothing but a twin bed and a borrowed coffee maker. No one tried to stop me. No one offered to help. I just packed my things and left. That was the first time I truly understood that, in their eyes, I wasn't someone to hold on to. I was someone to let go of easily. Over time, I let that emptiness settle around me like dust. It didn't sting the same way anymore. It was just there like wallpaper you stop noticing. Even my birthdays slipped their minds. One year, when I turned 25, my parents didn't call. Bella posted a picture from the Maldives, standing on a dock in a bright red bikini with a cocktail in hand. My dad liked her post and commented, "Proud of you, sweetheart." I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to feel something. That night, my coworker at the bookstore, Jamie, surprised me with a tiny cupcake and a wrinkled paper crown she made from an old book cover. I almost cried. Not because it was extravagant, but because someone had noticed I existed. Still, I didn't cut ties completely. I sent polite holiday messages. I liked their social media posts. I responded to group texts when necessary, offering neutral replies and heart emojis. I kept it civil, low contact, but never truly gone. Maybe I didn't want to burn the bridge. Or perhaps I was afraid they wouldn't notice if I did. Then the wedding invitation arrived. A thick cream envelope with gold trim, sealed with wax, and my name written in perfect calligraphy. Bella and her fiancé, Adam, were getting married in Aspen in early fall. I stared at the envelope for a long time, reading the lines again and again. No personal note. No "can't wait to see you," or "you mean so much to me." Just a name and an RSVP card tucked inside. It wasn't an invitation. It was an obligation. At first, I wanted to throw it away, pretend I never saw it. But then something settled in my chest, steady and defiant.
No.
I'll go. Not for her. Not for them. But for me. Because I refuse to be erased. I'll show up. I'll wear a dress that fits well. I'll hold my head high and remind them that I exist, even if they've done their best to pretend otherwise. No expectations. No drama. I'll attend the wedding, offer my congratulations, and leave quietly before the music starts. That was the plan. And I meant to stick to it. I arrived at the reception hall dressed in a soft blue dress I'd saved for months to buy. It wasn't flashy, but it hugged my waist perfectly and made me feel like someone who belonged. I curled my hair that morning, just enough to soften my face. I even treated myself to a manicure, something I hadn't done in over a year. As I stepped into the hall, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this day wouldn't hurt. Maybe it would just float by like a breeze, brief and harmless. The hall was beautiful, draped in ivory and gold. Twinkling lights hung like stars from the ceiling, and candles flickered gently at each table. A string quartet played softly near the stage. I inhaled deeply and walked to the seating chart near the entrance. I scanned the list. Table after table. My parents were seated at table 3, right near the front. Bella and Adam, of course, were at the grand centerpiece table 1, surrounded by their closest friends and family. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and even distant relatives filled up tables 2 through 10. I kept scanning. Down the list. Past table 15. Then, in the bottom right corner, like an afterthought, I saw it. Rachel Moore, table 19. Table 19. Near the coat check. I frowned. Not even with the cousins I grew up with. Not near our parents. Not with anyone who might remember my birthday or the sound of my laugh. Just me. Alone. I pressed my lips together and walked toward my seat. The smile I had practiced in the mirror that morning didn't feel quite right anymore. But I sat down anyway, because I was still here, and I wasn't going to disappear quietly. A young staff member in a black vest caught my confused look and gave me a polite smile. "Right this way, ma'am," he said, gesturing toward the far end of the reception hall. I followed him through the maze of tables, my heels tapping softly against the marble floor. People laughed and clinked champagne glasses all around us, the soft hum of conversation bouncing off the crystal chandeliers. He stopped near the back wall, beside a coat rack partially hidden behind a decorative screen. I blinked. Table 19 wasn't even really a table. It was more like a side table, the kind you'd expect to see next to a couch in a waiting room. It sat awkwardly near the corner of the hall, positioned between a vent humming with tired air and a door that read storage. There were no flowers, no candles, no name card, and no menu. Just one lone chair and a sweating glass of water, already leaving a ring on the wood. I looked at it, stunned. "Is this a mistake?" I asked, hoping he'd frown and say yes, that he'd lead me somewhere else. Somewhere with real linens and more than one chair. The staff member just shrugged and walked away. I stood there for a moment, my stomach tightening. My throat felt dry. My fingers clenched and unclenched at my sides. Maybe it was a mix-up. Maybe I just needed to ask. Maybe Bella didn't know. I could fix this, right? But a part of me already knew. Deep down, I knew. Still, I turned and started toward the bridal suite. The hallway leading there was lined with white roses and lit by soft golden sconces. Every detail had been curated, elegant, and expensive. It felt like walking into a movie set, beautiful and far away from where I had been seated. I knocked lightly and eased the door open. Bella was sitting at a vanity, reapplying her lipstick with slow, practiced strokes. Her dress glittered in the warm light, lace and delicate beadwork catching every motion. She glanced at me through the mirror, her expression unreadable.
"Oh."
"Rachel," she said, her voice flat, as if she'd been expecting someone else and was disappointed it was me. I forced a smile. "I think there's been a mistake with the seating. I'm at a table by the coat rack. Alone." She didn't even blink. She capped her lipstick and turned around to face me. "It's not a mistake." I frowned. "What?" "You didn't bring a +1, she said, as if that explained everything. "And you're not close with the family." We thought you might be more comfortable somewhere quieter.
We.
I repeated the word, catching in my chest. At that moment, our mother stepped out from the bathroom, adjusting her pearl necklace. She looked stunning, like a magazine version of maternal perfection. "Rachel," she said, flashing a too bright smile. "Everything all right?" "I'm sitting alone," I said, "by the coats." She waved a hand like it was nothing. "Oh, sweetheart, don't take it personally. Jenna has a lot of guests. It was hard fitting everyone." I stared at her. "I'm your daughter." She gave me a pat on the shoulder. "You're grown now," she said gently, like she thought she was offering comfort. That sentence sliced through me. "You're grown now." As if that meant I no longer needed to be included. As if being an adult disqualified me from basic kindness or family consideration. Bella tilted her head, still watching me. "You always make everything about you," she said coolly. "Can you just let me have my day?" I took a step back. I had come here thinking I could be gracious. Thought maybe if I showed up, wore the right dress, smiled in the photos, they might see me again, not just see through me. But standing in that room, facing the two of them in their designer dresses and manicured perfection, I realized it hadn't been an oversight. They didn't forget me. They had deliberately placed me where no one would see me. They had made a choice. And for the first time, I let myself feel the truth of it. I turned and walked away without another word. The hallway felt longer on the way out. As I passed the grand ballroom again, the string quartet was starting another song. A swell of violins filled the air, but it didn't touch me. I walked straight past my sad little table, past the servers pouring champagne and cousins dancing, and stepped out into the cool evening air. Outside, the sky was painted in deep shades of lavender and gray. The scent of pine drifted on the breeze. I stood for a moment, letting the silence press against my skin. Just past the edge of the garden, I paused. Something about the flicker of fairy lights near the rose arch pulled at a memory. Bella, months ago, sitting across from me at a cafe. "I can't stand Adam's mom," she had whispered. "Barbara's fake as hell. But whatever, I'll play nice until after the wedding. Then I'll set some boundaries." I remembered laughing quietly. I thought we were having a real moment, like sisters.
But now?
Now I saw it differently. She could fake kindness for someone she didn't even like. But for me, she couldn't bother. She didn't even try. The ache in my chest hardened into something else. Not anger. Not sadness.
Clarity.
I didn't want to go back inside. Not to that cold table. Not to people who looked past me as if I were part of the scenery. I was done performing for their comfort. Still, I hesitated. I had told myself I'd stay at least until the first dance. I had made it this far. Maybe I could make it through a little more. So, I returned to the table. I sat down slowly, tucking the skirt of my dress beneath me. The glass of water was still sweating, the condensation now forming a small pool beneath it. There was no plate, no napkin, no silverware. Not even a name card. Just me, at a ghost table. I sat with my hands in my lap, eyes fixed on the candlelight in the distance, trying to convince myself it didn't matter. And then I heard a voice behind me. "Well, this is cozy," a woman said, her tone warm and dry at the same time. She slid into the empty seat beside me like she owned the whole building. She wore a navy chiffon gown that shimmered when she moved. Her diamonds sparkled under the overhead lights, and her lipstick was a flawless red that hadn't budged. Her hair was pinned in a perfect chignon, not a strand out of place. She crossed one leg over the other and extended her hand.
"Barbara."
Adam's mother. I blinked. "The Barbara?"
She grinned.
"Don't look so shocked. I always find the best conversations happen in the corners of a room. Less noise. More honesty." I shook her hand. "Rachel, the bride's sister." She tilted her head.
"Ah."
"The infamous Rachel. The one who doesn't do small talk, I've heard." I raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like something my mother would say." "Or your sister," Barbara smirked, sipping from a glass she must have swiped on her way over. "Between you and me, I find it refreshing." For the first time that day, I let out a small laugh. And then she said something I hadn't expected. I've been watching all afternoon. People tell you who they are by how they treat the ones they think don't matter. I looked at her. She met my gaze without flinching. You didn't deserve this, she said simply. And just like that, my grip on the sadness loosened a little. Not because I needed validation, but because someone had seen me.
Seen me.
And I was done being invisible. I'm Barbara, she said again, her voice smooth but sharp around the edges. She offered a tight, practiced smile like it had been painted on. Adam's mother. I gave a polite nod. Rachel. She tilted her head slightly. Oh, of course. You're the sister. The one who, what was it Jenna said? She paused, tapping her manicured nail against her glass. Prefers distance. That was it. I smiled, even though the air between us felt like static. I suppose that's one way to put it. Barbara's eyes scanned the corner we were tucked into, just us, the coats, and a flickering emergency exit sign. She didn't hide her disapproval. Strange placement for family, though. You'd think you'd be sitting closer. Unless, of course, you chose this table. There it was. The quiet jab. The implication that this was somehow my choice. That my isolation was a result of my behavior. That I preferred the shadows. I folded my hands in my lap and kept my voice steady. No, I didn't choose it. But I'm used to being placed out of sight. Barbara tilted her head again, amused. Well, some people aren't meant to be center stage. Something inside me settled. Not fell apart, settled. Like sand in water after it's been shaken. I'd been pushed aside more times than I could count, told I was too much or not enough.
But now?
I saw the pattern. And I was done pretending it didn't exist.
So I changed the tone.
I took a slow breath. Jenna told me once that you made her redo her bridal hairstyle 4 times because it wasn't elegant enough. Barbara's expression froze. She said your voice gives her headaches. That she has to bite her tongue during dinner just to survive your stories. And if it weren't for Adam, she wouldn't even bother playing nice. The air between us went still. Barbara's grip on her wine glass tightened, the stem caught between 2 tense fingers. I continued, gently. She said her exact words, that she's just waiting until after the wedding to set you straight. Because once the photos are done and the honeymoon starts, she plans to cut the cord. Barbara's smile cracked. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. The mask she wore had slipped just enough to show the hurt beneath. I stood slowly, smoothed out my dress. But I'm sure she didn't mean it the way it sounded. I added softly. She's probably just stressed. Then I walked away. The music was swelling now, the ceremony about to begin. Guests were being called to their seats. Jenna and Adam had emerged from behind a floral archway, hands intertwined like a magazine ad for perfect romance. Cameras flashed. Applause erupted. I didn't return to my corner table. I found an empty seat in the last row of white chairs set up for the ceremony and watched from the shadows as the whole thing unfolded like a staged play. Bella, Jenna, walked down the aisle with measured grace. She looked flawless, radiant. She always did. But I saw it now. The difference between appearances and truth. One was crafted with precision. The other lived beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. After the vows and kisses and curated applause, the reception began. Guests filtered back into the hall. Champagne flowed freely. Music turned upbeat. And then Barbara took the stage. She adjusted the microphone with fingers that trembled just slightly. Her smile was there, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She started her speech with a practice line about love, growth, and gaining a daughter. And that's when I stood up. I didn't plan to. My heart was pounding, and my hands were ice cold. But something in me had changed. I was done being silent. Done accepting my place in the background, like it was all I deserved. I lifted my champagne glass and cleared my throat. Before Barbara continues, I said calmly, I think there's something she should know. The room quieted. Heads turned. Some gasped softly, as if this interruption broke a rule they never questioned. Jenna's head snapped toward me, her face draining of color. I took a step forward, steady and clear. I just wanted to raise a glass, I said, To the woman who planned this beautiful wedding and to whom Jenna once referred as a necessary evil until the papers are signed. Someone dropped a fork. The clatter rang out like a cymbal. Jenna's voice broke through the silence. "Rachel, stop." But I didn't. I walked closer to the head table. I wasn't shouting. I didn't need to. My voice carried in the stillness like a violin in an empty hall. "She said your taste in decor was dated, your opinions exhausting, and your relationship with Adam unhealthy. And that after tonight, she plans to keep you as far from her marriage as possible." Barbara's face crumpled. Her hands shook, still holding the mic. For the first time, she looked genuinely undone. "None of that was mine to say, of course," I said, setting my glass down gently on the nearest table. "But since I've been placed next to the Coates, I figured I'd share the breeze." Gasps turned into murmurs. The sound spread through the room like water spilling across marble. Jenna surged forward, her voice trembling with desperation. "She's lying. She's jealous. She's just trying to ruin this." Adam, still holding Jenna's hand, turned toward her slowly. His eyes scanned her face, searching. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice quiet but clear. Jenna faltered. Her mouth opened, but the words were stuck behind her teeth. "She's twisting everything," she finally said. "You know how she is." But Adam didn't answer. He kept looking at her as if trying to reconcile two versions of the woman he thought he knew. And what he saw there, whatsoever flicker passed between them, it wasn't comfort. It wasn't a connection. It was something else entirely. I turned and walked away. I didn't need to stay for the fallout. I didn't need to see Jenna stumble through a save or hear Barbara try to recover the rest of her speech. I didn't care if my mother pretended not to know me after this. None of it mattered anymore. Because I hadn't screamed. I hadn't cried. I hadn't thrown a drink or broken a plate. I had simply told the truth, in the same calm, composed voice they'd always used to ignore me. And somehow, that was the loudest thing I'd ever done. Behind me, I could feel the room shifting. The polished facade was breaking. The perfect image shattered with a few sentences of honesty. No yelling. No chaos. Just clarity. Reed, Adam's best man, stood awkwardly beside the head table. He didn't laugh it off like some guests did. He didn't rush to Jenna's defense. He looked at her, then at Adam, and slowly stepped away, the weight of what had just happened sinking into the floor like heavy fog. Adam loosened his tie and let go of Jenna's hand. I walked toward the doors. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was leaving something behind. I felt like I was walking towards something real. "You said those things?" Reed asked, his voice low but steady, like a thread pulled too tight. "To your sister? About my mom?" Jenna's jaw clenched. "Reed, this is not the time." "It's exactly the time," he said. "You've been fake with my mother, mean to your sister, and now you're standing here trying to deny it instead of owning it. What else have you lied about?" A hush fell over the room again, as if everyone had turned to glass, holding their breath. The hum of the chandelier buzzed faintly, and someone dropped a spoon in the distance, but no one moved to pick it up. Barbara was still standing at the microphone. She turned sharply, her heels clicking against the floor. "You ungrateful child," she snapped, her voice slicing through the tension like a knife. "I spent weeks planning this wedding with you. I defended you when Adam's father said you were too entitled. I stood by you even when I saw how you treated people, told myself maybe you were just stressed. But now..." She shook her head, her lip curled. "Now I see clearly." My mother rushed to Barbara's side, whispering something with urgency, but Barbara didn't flinch. She waved her off like she was brushing away lint from her sleeve. "I knew something was off with this girl," Barbara said, pointing at Jenna. "But this is humiliation." Jenna's face flushed. She looked around the room with wild eyes, as if trying to find anyone, who would take her side. Her curls were starting to fall from their pins, the shimmer of her lip gloss smeared slightly across her cheek. It was a small thing, but it made her look more human. And more undone. "This is your fault," she hissed, turning toward me. "You couldn't let me have one day." I took a breath. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to match her tone. I had something stronger now, truth. You had a day, Jenna, I said softly. What you didn't have was the truth. That showed up on its own. She shook her head violently, but the panic in her eyes betrayed her. You ruined everything. I stepped closer, my voice steady. No one won today. But you made yourself lose. You built this on lies. It was bound to collapse. Reed looked around the room, scanning the faces. His jaw was tense, but he didn't explode. He didn't throw anything or raise his voice. I need air, he said simply, brushing past Jenna. He walked away. No dramatic pause, no look back. Just footsteps fading against polished marble. Jenna stood motionless. Her arms hung stiffly at her sides. She looked as if she had stayed perfectly still. She could undo the moment. That it would all rewind and let her say something better. But it didn't. I turned to the gift table. Towering boxes and elegant envelopes stacked like a monument to everything this day was supposed to represent. I scanned until I saw mine: silver paper, fabric ribbon, my handwriting on the tag. My gift to her. I picked it up, then turned to face my mother. She was watching me closely, hands clenched in front of her as if praying I wouldn't cause another scene. Rachel, she said, stepping forward.
Please.
Don't make this worse. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, calmly, I'm just following the rules this family taught me. Don't make a fuss. Don't stay where you're not wanted. And never give more than you're given. She reached for my arm reflexively. I stepped away before she could touch me. You forgot my birthday for 5 years, I said. But you remember to seat me by the coat rack. So I think we both know where we stand.
She didn't argue.
Her eyes just dropped to the floor, the way they always did when the truth was too heavy to hold. I turned to leave. As I passed the stage, Barbara met my gaze. Her expression had softened. No longer angry. No longer furious. Just stunned. She gave me the smallest nod, like the beginning of something unspoken. Maybe even respect. I walked outside into the warm summer evening, holding the gift close. The lavender sky was streaked with fading gold. Distant laughter floated out through the open hall doors, but it felt like background noise now. Like the static hum after a storm. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't regret a single thing. For the first time in my life, I had spoken my truth and stood in it. I had always believed closure would come with apologies, with someone finally seeing me. But this was different. This was me seeing myself. I choose myself. And I was finally, fully, completely free. The next morning, soft sunlight filtered in through my living room blinds, casting quiet stripes of gold across the floor. I sat curled on the edge of my couch, still in pajamas, wrapped in an old throw blanket. My coffee steamed gently in the chipped mug I'd owned since college, its handle cracked, but still holding on. My phone buzzed on the table, screen lighting up for the 100th time since dawn. I flipped it over. 42 missed calls. 17 voicemails. Dozens of text messages. Mostly from my mother. A few uncles and cousins I hadn't heard from in years, all suddenly overflowing with opinions. Their messages blended into one loud, righteous accusation. How could you?
Why now?
You ruined her day. You embarrassed the family. You always were difficult. I scrolled through slowly. Not to read. Just to confirm it happened. That it hadn't all been a strange dream. Because it had happened. Every word. Every silence that followed. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I took another sip of coffee and stared out the window, where the sky was bright and quiet and completely mine. And then I saw it. A voicemail that wasn't like the others. It wasn't from my mother, or my aunt, or some cousin I'd barely spoken to. It was from my father. I hesitated. He had been there yesterday, but silent as always. He had stayed in the background, letting the storm move around him. He was good at that, being present without ever really being there. I tapped play. Rachel, his voice began, softer than I remembered. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. And I don't blame you. But I need to say this. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end, steady but slow, like he was trying to find the words carefully. I watched everything yesterday, he continued. And I want to be honest with you for once. I didn't speak up all those years. Not because I didn't see what was happening. I did. But I thought keeping the peace was more important. That was wrong. I sat up straighter. Reed didn't go home with Jenna, he said. He left the venue alone. Barbara is furious. She's cut ties with your sister. Said she won't be part of any marriage built on lies. And Jenna, she still won't admit anything. She's been asking us to get you to take it back. To say it was a misunderstanding. That you twisted her words. I let the silence sit for a moment before the message continued. I'm not calling to ask you to lie, he said. I just wanted you to know I understand now.
For the first time.
I understand why you've kept your distance. And then the message ended. I stared at the phone for a long time. I hadn't expected that. Not from him. He had always been the quiet one. The one who turned the TV up when voices got too loud. The one who shrugged instead of standing up.
But now?
He had used his voice. For once. Even if it was late. That afternoon, Jenna finally messaged me. Her words were sharp.
Rushed.
Desperate. Fix this. You humiliated me. I need you to clear it up. I replied once. I won't apologize for telling the truth. That was it. No more explanations. No justifications. No softening the blow. I didn't want her apology. I didn't need her guilt. I didn't even want revenge. What I had wanted, what I had always searched for, was clarity. And now I had it. I thought about every time I had swallowed my pride. Every moment I let things slide, I told myself it didn't matter, that being the bigger person meant staying quiet.
But I was done with that version of me.
Walking away wasn't giving up. It was standing up. It was choosing my peace, my truth, my worth, without needing it to be approved or recognized. And I wasn't waiting for anyone else to catch up.